A dying veteran breaks free from morphine and kills terrorists in a home invasion while protecting his pregnant daughter with his last breath. Welcome to the Vietnam Stories. Before we begin this powerful tale, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button. The house in Richmond, Virginia had been home to the same family for 40 years. But tonight, the line between life and death blurred. Frank Ace Morrison, 69 years old, Vietnam veteran, was taking his final breaths. Pancreatic cancer had been eating him alive for 6 months. Doctors had given him 3 months, but he seemed to be fighting for 6 already. In his bedroom, trembling next to his morphine pump, a sound from downstairs startled him. The digital clock showed 11:47 p.m. His daughter Emma, 8 months pregnant, was alone downstairs. Normally, he should be sleeping at this hour, but the cancer pain wouldn't let him rest. Emma Morrison Taylor, 34 years old, was a teacher but now on maternity leave. While her husband Mike was deployed in the Middle East, she was caring for her father. Tonight was the usual routine, watching TV and drinking tea while her father slept. The baby's kicks had already kept her awake anyway. She heard a strange sound at the front door. It sounded like a key opening it, but different. Metal on metal, as if the lock was being forced. Emma curiously got up and peered through the curtain. 2 figures were working on the door. They were professionally picking the lock. They had flashlights but were using very dim light. Emma's heart began racing. Emma whispered fearfully, "Oh God, is this real?" and immediately ran upstairs. She tried to keep her steps as quiet as possible. When she entered Frank's room, her father was under heavy morphine influence, his eyes half closed. His breathing was irregular. He had gotten worse in recent days. Emma said in panic, Dad, wake up. There are people downstairs. They're forcing the door open." As she tried to wake him by shaking, Frank forced his eyes open and murmured, "Emma, what's happening, sweetheart?" His voice was very weak. Emma said quickly, breathing hard, "Dad, there are 2 men. They're trying to open the door. They must be burglars. I'm calling the police." Frank suddenly became alert. The determination from 40 years ago appeared in his eyes. He had served in the 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam, 1968-1971. Search and destroy missions, 73 confirmed kills. He had spent 18 months in the region called Iron Triangle. Frank said with a weak but determined voice, "Emma, call the police, but in Richmond, the nearest unit takes 15 to 20 minutes. Emma said anxiously, "Dad, you're very sick. You're on morphine. You can't even move." Frank reached for his morphine pump and removed it. Pain immediately engulfed his body, but his mind cleared. Just like he did in war. Suppress the pain, do your duty, Frank said with determination. "Emma, in the bedroom closet on the top shelf, there's a metal box. Code 051971. Emma asked in surprise, "Dad, what's in that box? I never knew you had any guns." Frank said with his old determination in his eyes, "Colt .45 pistol, loaded, and spare magazines. I'm going to protect you, just like I protected my buddies 50 years ago." The sound of the door opening came from downstairs. Footsteps, 2 people moving quietly but hastily. Frank could tell from their movement patterns that they were professionals. Emma tremblingly took the box and entered the code. Inside was a pistol in perfect condition, well oiled, and 3 loaded magazines. Frank cleaned it every week. Emma had never noticed. Frank said weakly but expertly, "Emma, go to the bathroom, lock the door, hide behind the shower. I'll handle this." Emma said, crying, "Dad, you're not in any condition. You're dying. How are you going to fight them?" Frank took the pistol and checked the magazine. His hands were shaking, but his grip was solid. Muscle memory was still working. Frank said sadly, but with determination, "Emma, I've been dying for 50 years, since Vietnam. I die a little more every night, but today is a good day to die meaningfully." The footsteps were approaching the stairs. Frank could tell from the sounds that there were 2 people, one younger, the other experienced. Frank instructed Emma, "Go now," And call emergency services. Tell them home invasion, gunshots coming, pregnant woman in safe location. As Emma headed toward the door, Frank weakly grabbed her arm with his hand. Frank said emotionally, "Emma, tell my unborn grandson that his grandfather was successful in his final mission, and when you tell him about Vietnam, tell him that his grandfather's war had meaning. To protect family." Emma said through tears, "Dad, no. You won't die. You'll fight this disease." Frank smiled and said, "My little girl, I already lost the war. Cancer beat me, but this is different. I can win this last battle." Emma went into the bathroom and locked the door. With trembling hands, she called 911. The 911 operator asked, "911, what is your emergency?" Emma said, sobbing, "Home invasion. Richmond, Virginia, 1247 Oak Street. My father is a terminal cancer patient, but he's armed. 2 attackers are in our house. I'm pregnant and hiding." The 911 operator asked, "Ma'am, are you in a safe location? The nearest unit is 12 minutes away." Emma said, "I'm in the bathroom, locked. My father is downstairs. He's going to confront them. He's a Vietnam veteran, but very sick." The 911 operator warned, "Ma'am, due to your father's health condition, he should not take action. Wait for police." Emma replied, crying, "He's going to die protecting me. He's ready for this." Frank was in the bedroom, trying to hold the pistol steady with both hands. Cancer had weakened him, but muscle memory was still there. He remembered the days he fought Viet Cong 50 years ago. Tet Offensive, Hamburger Hill, countless ambushes. The footsteps were in the middle of the stairs. Frank controlled his breathing just as he learned in sniper training. The first attacker was a young man, maybe 25 years old, wearing a black mask. He had a long knife in his hand. He was nervous, moving hastily. The second was older, in his 40s, had a gun. He looked professional, his movements were controlled. He had done this before. The first man whispered, "Check upstairs, valuables are usually in bedrooms." The second man replied, whispering, "Got it. Let's be quick, don't let the neighbors hear." The young man was coming toward Frank's room. Frank was in bed, looking weak, but the gun was ready under the blanket. Breath control, heartbeat, target acquisition, everything was automatic. The young man slowly pushed the door open. The room was dark, only light coming from the hallway. The young man said in surprise, "What's this?" "There's a sick old man here," muttering to himself. Frank warned calmly but sternly, "Young man, turn around and leave immediately. This is my final warning. Police are on their way." The young man laughed and said, "Shut up, old man. Where's the money? Safes, jewelry, whatever you have." Frank said in a cold voice, "You picked the very wrong house, son." The young man pointed the knife forward and threatened, "I don't care, Grandpa. You're dying anyway. Give me the valuables, I'll make it painless." Frank acquired his target, center mass, just like he did in Mekong Delta in 1969. Distance 3 meters, easy target. Frank said, "Son, this is your last chance. My daughter is upstairs, pregnant. You're threatening her and her baby. I'll die for this." The young man lunged toward Frank, swinging the knife. Frank pulled the trigger. The first shot hit the young man's chest, pierced his heart. He fell instantly. The knife dropped from his hand. The older man's voice came from downstairs. "Tommy, what happened up there? Tommy!" Frank forced himself to stand. The cancer pain was unbearable, but adrenaline was pumping. His legs were shaking, but he could stand. The second man was quickly coming up the stairs, gun ready. This time it was more dangerous. Frank positioned himself at the doorway. His mobility was limited, but he had a good angle. He could lean against the wall for support. When the second man came upstairs, he saw Frank. The old man was standing, gun in hand. The second man shouted in surprise, "You killed Tommy, you bastard! You're dead!" Frank said calmly, "Tommy was young and stupid. You look experienced. Make a smart choice. Leave. Call an ambulance for Tommy." The second man pointed his gun at Frank. "You're gonna pay for this. Tommy was my nephew," he shouted. Frank said, "I'm sorry, son, but you'll die too if you pull that trigger." The second man shouted angrily, "You're already dying. Doesn't matter." Frank moved with old soldier reflexes. He leaned against the wall, ducked, and fired. The second shot hit the second man's shoulder. He dropped his gun, screamed in pain. But the second man was still moving. He pulled out his second gun from inside his jacket. He was very experienced. The second man shouted, "It's over, old man!" as he raised his second gun. Frank gathered his last strength. He took the third shot, this time a headshot, clean kill. The man fell backward. Silence. Gunpowder smell. 2 dead bodies. Frank's legs gave out. Cancer pain and adrenaline crash combined. He fell to the ground. He was having trouble breathing. Emma came out of the bathroom. The sounds had stopped. She found Frank on the floor, gun beside him. Emma said in panic, "Dad! Dad, are you okay? Are you hurt?" and ran to his side. Frank whispered weakly, "Emma, they're gone. You're safe. The baby is safe." Emma said, crying, "The ambulance is coming, Dad. Hold on to me. Please don't die." Frank smiled and said, "My little girl, it's too late for the ambulance. I can't survive without morphine, but I completed my mission." Emma pleaded, "Dad, please, fight. Don't you want to see your grandson?" Frank placed his hand on Emma's belly and said his final words, "Tell my grandson that his grandfather won his last battle. Tell him that he died for his family. An honorable death." Police sirens were coming from outside. They were very close now. Frank added, "Emma, when Mike returns, tell him I was proud of him. Good soldier, good husband. And you're a perfect daughter, my best girl." Emma said through tears, "Dad, I love you. I love you so much." Frank said, "I love you too, my little princess. And now I can rest. No more pain." And slowly closed his eyes. When police broke down the door, the scene was clear. 2 dead attackers, a dying veteran, and a safe pregnant daughter. Detective Rodriguez examined Frank and asked, "Ma'am, wasn't your father terminally ill? How did he accomplish this?" Emma replied, sobbing, "He was a Vietnam veteran. He killed 73 people in the war. He knew how to protect his family. He fought until his last breath." The detective said, "Ma'am, your father is a true hero. These men were very dangerous. There was a statewide warrant for them. Armed robbery, drug trafficking." The medical technician checked Frank and consoled, "Ma'am, your father is no longer suffering. He looks peaceful. He won his battle." Emma looked at Frank's face and murmured, "He completed his mission, his final mission. He was ready for this." The next day, all local newspapers ran the same headline: "Heroic end. Dying Vietnam veteran kills 2 armed attackers, saves pregnant daughter." The article included Frank's complete service record: Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Vietnam Service Medal, 73 confirmed kills, 18 months in Iron Triangle region. Mike took emergency leave from his deployment in the Middle East and arrived 2 days later. Mike hugged Emma and said, "Baby, I'm so sorry. I can't forgive myself for not being there. Your dad died protecting you." Emma explained, "Mike, he was happy. Even in his final moment, he was a soldier. His final mission was successful. It was an honorable death." Mike said, "Emma, I never knew your dad this well. He was a true warrior." Emma added, "Mike, he never talked about the war, but tonight the old Frank came back." Thousands of people attended the funeral, not just veterans, but all of Richmond. Honor Guard, 21-gun salute, taps played. The military chaplain said in his speech, "Frank Morrison gave the last breath of his life, defending his family. This shows what it means to be a father, a veteran, an American." Emma promised at the coffin, "Daddy, your grandson will carry the name Frank, and he will learn your story. He will learn what kind of man you were." 3 months later, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby boy. His name, Frank Morrison Taylor Jr. Emma told the baby every day, "Little Frank, your grandfather was a true warrior. He never complained. He never gave up. And even in his final moment, he protected us." Mike would add, "Son, your grandfather's legacy lives in you. Honor, courage, sacrifice, remember these." In baby Frank's nursery, all of old Frank's military medals hung in a frame, and below a small plaque, Frank Morrison, Vietnam veteran, died as he lived, protecting others, 1954 to 2024. Emma would whisper to the baby every night, "Your grandfather is with the angels now. But he's still here. He's still watching you. He's still protecting us." Years later, when young Frank asked, Emma would tell him, "Your grandfather was very sick, dying. But when family needed him, he became a soldier one last time. Because true warriors never really retire. Because some men appear ordinary in ordinary times, but in extraordinary times they show their true identity. They become heroes." And Frank Morrison, even as cancer was finishing him, even with his last breath, protected his family. Because that's what fathers do. That's what veterans do. That's what Americans do. So do you have a Frank in your life? Someone strong enough to protect their family even while dying? Share their stories in the comments. If this story moved you, subscribe and share, because true heroes never die. They continue to live in stories, and every story deserves to be honored.